Welcome back to the Vanessa G Fitcast. I'm Vanessa Pozos, and here with me is Omar Pozos, my co-host and husband. How you doing, Omar?
I am doing fantastic, I would say. I'm a little tired. Vanessa and I just got back from, where were we, babe? We went Austin for work, and then we were in Mexico for a friend's wedding, and now we're back home and trying to get caught up with work. But all in all, I'm feeling good. How are you doing?
I mean, similar. I'm definitely a little bit on the tired side, but it's one of those things where just so grateful to be able to have like all the opportunities we have to be able to travel and to work remotely and to just kind of live the life that we get to live. It's just such a blessing. So, tired but grateful to be tired for good reasons.
Yep.
Today's episode, I was actually, so part of this came about because I had just posted a reel last weekend. So by the time this episode comes out, it would have been out for a little over a week. And, it was one of those ones that just kind of happened to catch the algorithm and take off and get a lot of views. And so I think anytime, you get millions of views on something, of course, you're going to get a lot of different people with different opinions, different viewpoints. And there's always going to be those people who are very loud in their opinions and viewpoints. And so what I find kind of funny about this is, this was a reel where I was really telling my story, which, a lot of the podcast listeners who you've been around for a while, these stories, a lot about my history and how I worked through a lot of hormone imbalances and gut issues and immune system issues and a lot of things. And as part of my process of working through a lot of health issues, I did actually stop working out for a period of time. And so this reel was kind of centered around that, of really using that as like the hook to kind of capture people's attention, because of course, any form of content to be able to capture attention, you need to kind of say something that's almost a little bit shocking, a little bit surprising. And, saying how I stopped working out and that was part of the transformation process for me is, of course, in this instance, definitely worked of like was shocking for a lot of people and got a lot of views. Now, within the caption, I explained, of course, the full context around my story and how, going through these hormone imbalances, my body being really run down, my history of overtraining, I did for a period of time pull back from exercise to allow my system to essentially just calm down and be in a more restful state so that I could heal and I could then use the other practices and tactics within nutrition and supplementation and lifestyle changes and all the different things to ultimately get my body back in balance, get my body healing so that I could then bring back in working out, which is something that I do love, and really bring that back in, get back to focusing on more building muscle and all these types of things. I give that context to say, of course, then, there were quite a few people who were, perceiving my post to be me promoting, women not working out and, telling women that they shouldn't work out and ultimately like going against kind of health claims, essentially. And I can understand, some people like their maybe how they're perceiving things. I can understand people's thought processes. But of course, anytime that, you're getting a lot of, you could say like hate messages around something, it makes me want to be like, okay, maybe I should take a step back here and maybe I do need to give a little bit more information here. And so that's what inspired today's podcast of wanting to share a little bit around kind of my opinions and what I've seen work really, really well when it comes to the fitness side, the working out side, from not only myself, but from, the over 1,000 women that we've helped in Vital Spark Coaching.
Yeah. And, I want to give you a little bit of credit, babe, and we didn't plan this ahead of time, so this is a little bit unexpected for you. But, I think that with you trying to promote, what proper health and fitness should look like, what proper hormone support, gut health support, all of these things, should look like. Sure, you've gotten a lot of eyeballs and attention and all that stuff, but with that too, you've gotten a lot of hate, which I really hate that for you. And I know this isn't easy because, of course, the keyboard warriors, the internet trolls will sit back and be like, you know what? They'll be like, Vanessa, like, shut the hell up. Or even, with curse words and stuff like that. But, I do want to very much say like how proud I am of you for speaking up, for sharing your stories with women, because I know this stuff isn't easy, but most importantly, I know the backlash and all the hate comments and stuff that you get because of you trying to promote stuff like this is not easy. So anyways, big kudos to you, because as much as, you know, people see the good things of having a large following, they don't see the little things like this that you have to endure day in and day out too.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Definitely tearing up a little bit. But, you know, it is one of those things that it is challenging. And it's one of those things where it's, you know, so grateful to have that kind of challenge, because it's to be able to reach a lot of people is a blessing in and of itself, to be able to spread my message and educate and really get out what I want to get out. Of course, there's going to be the shadow side of that, which also means, you know, in reaching the people I want to reach and in getting the message out to the women who need to hear it, I'm also going to spread that message to people who don't need to hear it and, you know, maybe are not receptive to that message. And that's okay, because I'm not here to help every single person. I'm not here to, you know, speak to every single person. And especially, you know, a lot of my message and talking about my story of overcoming a lot of health issues, I'm looking to speak to women who are dealing with similar health issues, who, you know, maybe don't even realize they're dealing with those health issues, or know they're dealing with those health issues, but haven't been able to get the help. And so that is more of a niche audience. It is not just every single person out there. It is a subset of women who I'm trying to reach. And so of course it's going to make sense that the people who don't need that message, who aren't dealing with these types of things, don't understand it and, you know, maybe get angry about that kind of message. But ultimately, what I wanted to share on this episode is 3 fitness truths that I genuinely believe that every woman could really benefit from hearing these 3 things, not even just the, you know, subset of women that I typically talk to who are dealing with these types of hormone imbalances, gut issues, and other types of health concerns preventing them from losing weight. These 3 things really do apply to anyone and everyone, but I'm going to explain them a little bit further to give a little bit more of that context for, you know, all of the women that I'm ultimately trying to reach. So number 1, what I hope that women can take away from this and that they can really understand about fitness and about health is that you do not need to spend a ton of time in the gym. In fact, you may not need to spend time in the gym at all. Like almost everybody I talk to seems to have this kind of perception that in order to be really healthy and fit and to look lean and, you know, have like that kind of muscular development that, like, you know, we want in terms of maybe looking toned, quote unquote, oftentimes women believe that they should be in the gym at least 4 days a week, but they're like, you know, I should be working out 5-6 days a week. I should be doing a lot of high intensity. I should be feeling really, like I'm pushing myself really hard. And they often think that a lot of it comes down to like the amount of time that they're working out. But the reality is, like, for most people in life, you might go through seasons of your life where you can work out a ton, but for most people, that's not going to be your whole life. And for like the vast majority of your life, you're going to have a lot of time constraints. Time constraints are real. And the good news is, what I found in myself and the women that we've worked with over the years is that you can stay very, very fit. You can get very, very fit and stay very, very fit with 2 to 3 days a week in the gym. For myself personally, my kind of ideal week of training, like my ideal schedule looks like 3 days of strength training. So 3 days in the gym and then 1 yoga class. But ultimately, if I actually look at like my, you know, history of logged workouts, and I've done this, I've gone and looked and seen like, what am I actually averaging? If that's like my goal was the 3 days of strength training, 1 yoga class, what am I actually doing? On average, I'm actually working out 2 days per week. I'm doing 2 strength training sessions per week, and then I'm doing maybe 1 yoga class a month. That's what actually is happening. And I want women to understand when they, you know, look at my transformation, they look at kind of, you know, how I'm maintaining my body. I want them to understand that, like, I'm actually not doing anything too crazy. And you don't have to do anything too crazy. A lot of our clients don't ever even step foot in the gym. A lot of clients work out from home with, you know, basic equipment. You don't even need to have a really fancy full gym as well. I've even had clients who we don't really do full workouts. They just do what we would call like trigger sessions that might look like, doing some air squats every hour, or, maybe pairing an exercise like push-ups with something like, microwaving your food. Like, we can find little pockets of time throughout their day to insert in a little bit of like maybe some body weight type of strength building exercises. And, is that the perfect way to build muscle and strength and get fit? No, of course not. But I believe that it is this pursuit of perfection that women have and that women are like seeking when it comes to fitness and working out that ultimately holds them back and leaves a lot of women essentially more sedentary than anything, is because like, well, I can't do the full hour workout in the gym today, so I'm just not going to work out. Well, I don't have enough energy or time to do all the exercises at, the amount of reps prescribed. So I'm just, not going to do anything at all. And it's just like this constant of like not being able to do enough. So I'll just do nothing instead.
It's that all or nothing mentality, basically, right?
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's really the consistency that we need to be seeking. It's consistency that is crucial when it comes to our fitness. So I want you to understand with this first point. Do not try and create the perfect workout routine. Do not try and, create this perfect workout plan and hold yourself to it if it's going to just take over your life, take over your identity, and possibly become detrimental. I really encourage you, fit your workouts into your life. Find something that you can be consistent with over time, and just trust that anything above 0 compounds. Even if it's not your perfect ideal workout, it's going to be better than nothing, and that's going to keep me moving you in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, perfect example. I just talked about how much travel we've had these last 2 weeks. If you don't mind sharing, like, how many days a week did you work out while we were in Mexico?
I worked out once in Austin, and, I did one workout in Mexico, and I did like a fraction of a workout another day.
Yeah. So 2.5 workouts, give or take. Yeah. But about, the other things that you did do that we didn't talk about was like, you were still getting some daily movement, right? You were still getting your steps. You were still prioritizing like your water, your hydration, like little stuff like that I think a lot of people just oversee. Those are the things that are like, okay, cool. Like, to me, I was like, well, I got like 12,000 steps one day. I was like, and I didn't make it to the gym, but I did everything else. I was like, great, fantastic. And it keeps pushing the needle forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. I even think back to like just, you too. Of course, we're talking specifically about women, and I think men can handle a lot higher volume in general most of the time than women. But I mean, even for yourself, there was a time where you also were kind of on that bandwagon of just like working out as much as you could. And, now you do more like 4 days, I think, in the gym.
Four is a great week for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that women can kind of take some reassurance here that, hey, if you feel like you're striving to do a lot and you're having trouble keeping up with that, or your body's feeling run down, or you're not seeing the results you would expect to see from working out as much as you are, or on the flip side, you're not working out at all, or you're barely working out because you think that you need to be doing this amount that is just not realistic for you, I hope that you can really take, some reassurance here that it's okay, and that you don't have to be doing what, maybe you see the fitness influencer, the athlete, and these different things that are doing these like intense workout routines. Their bodies may be able to handle something that your body might not be cut out for, and that is okay. Now, number 2 on these kind of 3 fitness truths that every woman needs to hear, in my opinion. Number 2, we all really need to be focusing on just building bigger muscles at the end of the day. Tone, like tone, like muscle tone, it really is just kind of like a made up buzzword. And I know I mentioned this before. I also know that I use this word often, and that's because we all understand what toned really refers to. We understand kind of the idea and like what women are referring to when they say they want to be toned. What I want us to differentiate is when women say, oh, I don't want to build muscle, I just want to be toned. I don't want to, have a lot of muscle, I just want to tone up. The reality is there's not really a difference. Tone, like when we often like refer to toning, what you're really kind of referring to is building some muscle and losing some body fat so that you still look lean, but you have some definition showing, because you're kind of removing some of that layer of fat to where we can see the muscle pushing up against the skin, and you build the muscle enough so that when you do remove the layer of fat, you're not like a squishy stick figure kind of a thing, right? So the reality is muscles...
I'm trying to picture a squishy stick
figure. The reality is muscles only either grow or they shrink. That's what muscles do. The shape of muscles, despite what advertising from certain types of workouts might lead you to believe. The shape of muscles is going to be determined by your genetics. You can't really lengthen muscles. You can't really change the way that your muscles tie into kind of like your muscle bellies, the way everything is structured within your body. That comes down to your genetics. And that's why if you were to look at like fitness professionals, if you look at bodybuilders, they have been kind of like genetically made to be the right kind of structure for what in those competitions they're looking for. And then all they're really doing is focusing on building certain muscles and finding balance and saying, okay, this muscle needs to be bigger. This muscle needs to be, more balanced with this muscle. That's what they're doing. They're not changing shapes of muscles. That you can't do that. But women, unfortunately, get caught up in like sometimes the way that marketing will use words like tone and like lengthening muscle and things like that. They'll start to perceive that, well, I could maybe look like that person if I just work out in this way. And what I want women to understand is stop looking for ways to change your muscles and just look at ways of building your muscle and building strength, most importantly. Strength is what's going to serve you long term, especially at women as we age and we become more at risk of osteoporosis, which can be a huge risk factor when it comes to, mortality as you get older. And so these are things that we should be focusing on, not just for our looks and how our body is shaped, but really looking at like seeing muscle and strength as this foundation of being a healthy human being. So do not be afraid to build muscle. Do not be afraid to grow muscle. I promise you're not going to accidentally end up with these big muscles. That doesn't happen. You have to have like crazy genetics to just accidentally end up with big muscles. So, other than like the 1% who maybe if you happen to be that way, then of course, like maybe we'll train in different ways to like prevent you from overly growing your muscles beyond what you want them to look like. But most women do not fall into that category. It is very, very rare. So what you need to focus on if you want to achieve the toned quote unquote look is building muscle via building strength, working on kind of just growing your muscle and then alternating that with periods of time of losing fat. And then of course, for a lot of the women who we speak to, they're not just holding on, or they're not just coming down to like muscle and fat. When it comes to their appearance, their body composition, oftentimes there's a lot of inflammation that we need to work on. And that can be even a first step before we're addressing body fat and muscle tissue at that point.
And to your other point too, when you focus on building, bigger muscles, then you can have, vacations, travels where you only work out a little bit less because it's a lot easier to maintain the muscle that you already have, right, than it is to kind of melt it too. So that's
muscle is very resilient, and there's been studies that have suggested that it's only really takes one workout per week, one strength training session per week to maintain your current muscle mass. So a lot of times women might be on like a 4-day strength training program. They only get in 2 days 1 week and they're freaking out of like, oh my God, I feel like I've lost all my progress. No, you're totally fine. If all you need is, one workout per week on average, not even every single week, and you'll be just fine with maintaining your muscle. So don't be afraid of building muscle. If anything, it'll actually lead to a better, body composition for most women, what they're seeking over time because of a lot of the kind of downstream effects of having more muscle. More muscle is going to make you more insulin sensitive. It's going to allow your body to kind of better use sugar. It's going to help your body be more efficient with actually burning body fat, because if your body's more insulin sensitive, you're not going to be storing fat as easily. You're going to be more effective in actually burning fat and retaining muscle, which is what we want. And then being more insulin sensitive, that's going to have downstream effects of helping balance out your hormones as a whole. Like there's a ton of positive effects that can come from building muscle. Number 3, our last kind of point here on our 3 fitness truths that every woman would benefit from hearing is effective is not the same as intense. We started to kind of talk about this a little bit on point 1 there when talking about kind of how much we think we need to be in the gym versus what we actually need, but we also need to talk about like intensity when it comes to working out. I definitely used to be of the kind of like, I used to be in the camp where I just thought that like the harder you push yourself, the more you were getting out of your workout. I truly, like in my CrossFit days, I look back and I thought that if I was laid out on the ground after a workout, that meant it was a good workout. And if I wasn't like needing to literally collapse on the ground, like workout ends, boom, I'm on the ground. if that didn't happen, it probably wasn't a very good workout. And then I would typically just do another workout after that because I was like, oh, I must not have worked hard enough.
Well, remember the, I don't know if you remember this, Ness, the, like a lot of this is known like within the CrossFit community, they call it like the sweat, like wings or
Sweat
whatever.
angel?
Yeah, sweat angel or whatever. And it's just basically when people plop down on the ground because they're so sweaty, they leave an imprint on the ground. They're like, oh my gosh, you must have worked out really hard.
Yeah,
and a lot of
badge of
people are
honor.
like, hey, exactly, it's a badge of honor. You're like, if you didn't have that, like you didn't work out hard enough, so you need to be, pushing harder. You need to be doing faster. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like now looking back, I'm like, that is such a terrible way to look at things.
I know. And it's like, no wonder I was always puffy and was never really able to actually get lean doing that. And we, of course, like if you think of within the CrossFit community, you'll look at like the CrossFit athletes, you'll see these women who are super lean and jacked and you're like, well, they're working out a ton and they look like that. So if I work out, as much as they do, I'll look like that too. And then you wouldn't, you would just get injured. You would feel terrible. Hormones would just get shot and you'd be like, well, what's wrong? Like, I must not be doing enough. Let me just do more and do more. And, I, of course, kind of picking on the CrossFit community, which is something that we come from, but this is prevalent in all types of working out. Like I see this in, a lot of like the group fitness type classes, super common as well of like the harder you push yourself, the better workout it must have been. Like, people talk about it like, oh my God, I was so sore from that workout, from my F45 or from my Pilates class, my hot yoga. Like, oh my God, I'm so like, my body is just beat. That's not necessarily a good thing. Every once in a while, yes, and there's a time and a place if we're structuring our training program effectively where there will be a time and a place to push yourself in that way. But for women, it is few and far between that we want to push that hard. And I think truly this is the hardest thing that I find in coaching a lot of the women that we coach, where we have a lot of women who come to us who maybe were past athletes, who maybe have just really like wrapped their fitness into their identity. A lot of things that I resonate with because that was me. And that's where I probably attract a lot of these types of women. And that's where it's scary to let up on that intensity. It's scary to trust that not pushing yourself really hard is actually going to help you. It's actually going to benefit you. But the reality is the kind of like concepts behind a lot of these really high intensity workouts, they're designed for athletes. So again, kind of more of that like 1% who their bodies can handle that and can have positive adaptations, body composition wise to those things. But also, men are a little bit more designed and a little bit more, resilient for that form of intensity, that type of working out. And so if you are trying to do that type of like high intensity, just pushing yourself in any domain, like this could really be literally any type of working out. If you're just pushing yourself, for like a higher intensity for that type of working out, and you're not seeing positive adaptations, or maybe you once were and you're no longer seeing positive adaptations. Maybe you would like to lose weight, but you can't seem to get the body fat off. Maybe you feel puffy. Maybe your digestion seems to be off. Maybe your energy is different. Maybe your sleep has changed. Like these can all be signs and symptoms that it is messing with your health a little bit. And this could be affecting your gut health. When we are doing really high intensity, you're typically putting yourself into a sympathetic nervous system state, which is going to pull away from your gut health. If we want to have a healthy, balanced gut, we need to have our body really in a parasympathetic state. Often, we need to be able to balance it out. And realistically, a lot of us are overstressed in other areas of our life, so we're already more sympathetic dominant. So now we add in high intensity workouts, and your gut health is definitely going to take a hit. It could be affecting your immune system, which typically is going to tie into your gut health. If your gut health isn't in a good spot, you're in this sympathetic state, then you eat meals. Now, you're ultimately could end up in a place where now you're starting to set yourself up for an autoimmune disease or an overactive immune system. This could be more looking at our sex hormones. We talked about insulin being a big part of why we want to strength train, but if we're pushing too hard and you're already overstressed, you're already on more of like a high cortisol state, then now we add these intense workouts on top and your body's going to be wanting more cortisol. So it's actually going to end up converting progesterone into cortisol. You might find yourself with really high aldosterone, which is going to be a hormone that causes you to hold on to water and look really puffy. This is why, especially in our luteal phase, a lot of women, myself included, I'll find that I look a lot puffier if I'm working out more intensely. We'll see oftentimes in women that they might become androgen dominant, as if they're working out too hard, their DHEA, their androgens get really high, And, that's where you end up burning out a lot of our other hormones. So I could go on and on about like the science of why these things might be happening. And to be clear, it's rarely just the workouts themselves that are doing this. Like if you have everything else in your life in like this really zen state, you probably can work out really hard. You probably can push yourself really intensely and have positive adaptations. But that's not realistic for most people. Most people have jobs, have families, have just like day-to-day stressors, and that stress is just going to be too much on top of a really stressful, really intense workout regimen. So
or another thing too is there's a lot of dieting history, right? Or disordered eating in the past, or just overtraining. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it, that a lot of people I think miss out on or that oversee, and then like, I can navigate these things, or I feel good in the moment, and then next thing you know, 3-6 months, you're like, oh my gosh, why do I feel this way? But anyways, all of that context and background I think is very important for people to highlight too.
Yeah. And so it's, almost coming back to the posts I talked about, the reel that, is kind of going a little bit viral, and talked about how I stopped working out for a period of time, and that helped lead to the transformation that I had. I want to be clear, the stopping of working out, that not a magic fix. Like that alone, if you're somebody out there where you're like, man, maybe that's what I need to do, just not working out, it might help. You might notice a reduction in inflammation, but it's not going to actually be the fix. We still have to address the root cause issues of why your body is struggling, why your body is stuck in fight or flight. There could be some like mental stressors, some past trauma that needs to be worked through. Maybe we need to, get into some counseling, some therapy, along with doing some of the mindset work that we do in our coaching. Maybe it's more of like a relationship with food issue where, like you were saying, Omar, there could be some disordered eating happening to where, maybe we're having periods of restriction and then periods of overeating. Maybe we're just restricting as a whole. Maybe we're just, binge eating up and down, or like eating in weird times and different things. Like there could be a lot of factors at play, but we need to give your system a break. We need to allow your nervous system to calm down and do so in a way that your body can actually get into a healing state so that we can return to exercise and have it be effective by ultimately following these 3 principles. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. If it was, do me a favor, shoot me a message on Instagram. Let me know. Send this to a friend. If you'd like to even post this on your story and tag me, I would love that, because that's how we can spread the message to the women who need to hear it. Help me fight off all the haters and let the women who need to hear this actually hear this message so they can benefit from it. That's the goal.
And another thing, you guys, we don't ever ask for anything on this podcast. We don't run any advertisement or anything. So if you guys feel like these episodes help, or if you feel like, what Vanessa's sharing is something that you want to help us continue to, like she said, spread the word, please also leave us a review. We can do Spotify, we can do, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to the podcast. Please leave us your honest feedback, your honest review, if anything, so that we can always continue to get better, but also so that other people can get access to this information, because I know there is a lot of confusion. So please, 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 as a huge favor to Vanessa and I, if you could please leave a review, leave a rating for us, that would be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening, guys. We'll be back
everybody.
Next week.